It might be a different day, but still, we've got a lot to get to as it pertains to this upcoming Michigan football game with the Connor Stalions. We dig into the manifesto right here on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. That's former Michigan analyst, our sign stealer, the man, the myth, the manifesto writer, Connor Stalions. We are, first off, going to thank all of our everydayers. And then I also got to thank everyone who makes us your first listen. We're a little late today because Connor's, he's digging into the manifesto himself. I just got back from Ann Arbor where I went and visited the Fox set. So first segment, Connor, I think we're going to kind of first go back and recap what happened for Michigan against Maryland. Mm-hmm. I think after that, segment two, let's get even deeper into the Maryland game and what happened there. Segment three, I don't know if it's possible for us to dig even deeper into the Maryland game, but I think that's what everyone has on their mind. What happened against Maryland?
Yep.
Let's discuss it. Let's do it. But before we do, and I'm not going into an ad read, I just have a quick question for you. Is Ohio State all that?
Are they all that? I mean, they're obviously good. They are
end show.
Yeah. And we'll see. That's why they play the game. I think the team that's going to score the more points than the other team is the one that'll win.
Mm-hmm. That's it's bold analysis. It took us all season to get here where you can offer that type of insight.
Yeah. I mean, it did take a few games for me to kind of figure that out, but I do think I don't know about before 2021, but I know the team that has scored the more points in each game since 2021 has won this game. So I think that'll uphold tomorrow.
See, I don't think that's the case because in 2021, Michigan scored more points, but Ohio State had the flu. It was cold. It was snowy. 2022, it was it just
they did. I think what happened was they took the bus to Ann Arbor.
Yeah, that'll do it. Mm-hmm. That if you fly, because Michigan flew down to Columbus the last couple of years,
and they won.
Yeah, so
I think Ryan Day's onto something.
You know what? I just got back from the 45-minute car ride from Ann Arbor, and
you should have flown.
I should have flown. Right, Flint to Willow Run. Just do it. Okay, this is going to be a show. Certainly, I'm sure that is going to come. Like, if Michigan does not win this game, it's going to come with a lot of receipts. People are just going to be. But I mean, the same goes for the other way too, of course. For all of the coverage that's out there that's acting like it's a foregone conclusion. So I want to address first what in your video that you released a couple hours ago. You made me really believe that Michigan's going to be able to do what it wants to do on the ground. And I don't mean that in terms of like, hey, it's not
going to be easy, but
like you talked about how Ohio State is actually not very gap sound and they're not very good in run fits. Mm-hmm. Just elucidate on that, because that was one of those, now you have my attention type of thing.
Like Patricia gets a lot of credit, and obviously he's a good defensive coordinator. People in Michigan, obviously his head coaching stint with the Lions was not good. But as a coordinator, he's always been successful, right? And I think the part of the reason why they are so good is it's like complementary football for them. We've always talked about complementary football for Michigan, but for them, their offense is explosive. They get up early on teams. And then if you are for example, an Illinois or a Penn State where you're talented enough where you could beat them, like there is a possibility, very unlikely, but you're going to win the game and you find yourself down by 10. And so what do? You start throwing the ball, you start kind of opening up the call sheet a little more. And Ohio State's strength defensively, schematically, is definitely in the passing game. And they're very exotic, somewhat similar to Michigan. Without getting into too many details, it's they can do a lot. They do a lot, but I want to say it's a downside for them, but it's a little more predictable than Michigan's based on how they align. Might drop a few things tomorrow that kind of exploits some of that, but they're in the run game. They're really good up front, just block destruction, specifically Caden McDonald, and the scheme, kind of like what we talked about at the Purdue game. Very high risk, high reward, where they're constantly slanting guys and running, a bunch of pressures. And against the pass, it works a lot, especially for them. Against the run, they've had some success, and then they've been exploited quite a bit too. So it's one of those where it's like you're either going to get a TFL or you're going to give up some yards, and there's no in between. So there's times where, obviously you can watch the video I put out there that goes through a whole bunch of examples, but there's multiple plays where they have nobody that's responsible for the A gap the entire play. And then there's multiple plays where they're in wide front. So both defensive linemen, the interior linemen are in the B gap, both B gaps, and then the edge players are in the C gaps. And there's the linebackers are responsible for the A gaps. I would not recommend that if you're going to play Michigan, but they do that on first and second down. So again, they take a lot of risks, and this is just my opinion based on watching the film. I feel like when they install their defense, the primary focus is coverage responsibilities. And then after they get that down, then they go through the run fits, because you can tell they're each individual as they align. They never align based on the run fit. So that's a habit. It's kind of like it's my gripe with 7-on-7. Like if you take so many reps as a linebacker or a safety in 7-on-7, you're not going through the proper checklist of, okay, where's my gap? First of all, am I in the run fit? If I am, what gap do I have? And then, okay, what's my pass coverage responsibility? And all that's based on how the offense aligns, but they're not bad, obviously. They're just a little slow to identify, like if I'm a corner or a safety or a nickel, am I in the run fit? They're very hesitant when they are responsible for the C gap or the D gap or whatever the case is. So that on top of, they try to 2-gap a lot of things that you'll see in that video where if a lineman has the B gap and he shocks the offensive lineman, and he'll shed and go in the other gap early, and then the ball goes right to the gap he was responsible for. So they just take a lot of risks, and I'm sure it'll pay off some plays, and I'm sure it'll hurt them some plays. It's just how much will it pay off and how much will it hurt them? But there's definitely opportunity for Michigan, whether it's Jordan Marshall, Bryson Cusdahl, whoever it is, to identify when they're out of gap. Could be anyone, could be a linebacker, safety, a corner, sometimes even a lineman, and exploit it.
You're telling me it's the Thomas O'Meara game. I heard it. I'm excited for it. It's like Biaka Batuka. They just hear O'Meara ringing in their ears. Hopefully Michigan doesn't actually have to play Thomas O'Meara, because that would mean bad things otherwise. Even though we're up against it, we're just going to go along with the segments this show. But when it comes to the other part of the defense that Ohio State presents, right? Like everyone just seems. It's incredible watching Ohio State media and even national media. Like I've only seen one person, our guy Josh Pate, that had Michigan winning. Granted, he's doing it kind of because he doesn't want to be proven wrong again. But
I'm a little concerned with that pick.
Yeah, let's group check.
At least Steve picked Ohio State, though. I know I would have been very concerned if he picked Michigan.
Yeah, well, Steve's if you heard the dings during the show, it's him melting down right now in anticipation of the game. So there's that. But nonetheless, everyone seems to be of this mindset. Michigan's not going to be able to move the ball. The Ohio State's going to dare Michigan to throw the football. How do you feel about that matchup, Bryce Underwood versus their pass defense?
Well, I think it goes hand in hand, right? Like Michigan's not going to just spread you out and start throwing the ball left and right. It's going to have to be married with the run game, like you've seen success in that Washington game. Play action and boot. I think, if Michigan's not going to have a successful passing game, if they're not going to have a successful running game, and it doesn't even have to be groundbreaking. It just has to be effective enough, exploit Ohio State enough, whether it's, them not being gap sound and Michigan exploiting it, or Ohio State's also struggled against gap scheme counter and stuff like that. So I think Michigan having even a little bit of success there and, getting Ohio State a little antsy to stop the run and just at the right time, perfectly marrying that with a boot game and play action game that we've seen before. And in that video, you'll see, Ohio State there's opportunity there. And again, it's not a discredit to Ohio State. It's just, there has been opportunity. You see like Arch Manning just ground the ball in the first play of the year. Should have been a 20, 30-yard gain. And there's multiple throws in the Penn State game where Ohio State gave up a lot of access on like a comeback, like 15 yards kind of outside vertical stem. That's really one of Bryce's strengths that we've seen throughout the years, thrown to the sideline on like a comeback or curl. This isn't a game where, we need to open it up. No. Like that would be playing right into Ohio State's strengths, right? You find yourself in 3rd and long too much against Ohio State, not a good recipe for success. So I think just like most games for Michigan, the effective passing game is going to have to be a little bit dependent on the run game and, getting Ohio State to bite on certain things. I do think the boot game I think that's the number one key tomorrow. Talking about that transition between being an effective run team and then opening things up in the passing game. I think it all starts with the boot game. So if they're effective at all in running stretch, counter, whatever they want to run boot off of, then that's, Michigan will have a much easier time than most teams Ohio State has played at moving the ball. And again, this isn't, I'm not going to defend Ohio State here, but they get a lot of crap for not playing a tough schedule. Outside of that Texas game, I don't think they played an offense that is in the top 40 in college football. I could be wrong on that. I read that somewhere.
Washington, I believe, at least is or was at that time.
But again, like we've seen what Michigan did to Washington defensively, right? So, but it goes both ways, right? Neither team has been significantly tested. I think Michigan's been tested a little more. The game at Oklahoma and the game at USC, obviously 2 losses, but they've learned a lot. You can tell, obviously defensively, we're not to that side of the ball yet, but ever since the problems at USC, more so defensively, that really hasn't been too much of a problem ever since schematically.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that side of the ball here in a moment. One last thing I want to mention before we go to break. I am curious to see how much Bryce keeps the ball, whether it's designed or, has those boots and then decides to take off. I think.
Yeah, his decision making, even on passes of getting him out of the pocket, that does multiple things. You just said, it avoids a good pass rush that Ohio State has to an extent. I mean, getting him out of the pocket, that helps. And then 2, giving him the ability to use his mind and legs at the same time. Am I throwing it? Am I running it? Also, obviously, earlier in the year, Michigan did a lot of quarterback run, like design Q run, the scheme, the counter power, whatever the scheme was for Bryce. And then the back going the opposite direction. It's called bash, back away from the scheme. So like Q counter bash, we haven't seen that in a long time. So just an observation.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people want to say, it was the Biff Poggi offense versus the Sharon Moore offense. While I can't speak to the veracity of that, I think they're going to do whatever it takes to win this game.
You saw it a lot when JJ was a quarterback. They didn't really run him much until it was the Penn State game or Ohio State game.
Yep, exactly. All right, we got to move on. Let's talk Ohio State's offense versus the Michigan defense, which I feel is being overlooked in a big way. So let's get to that here in just a moment. But before we do, the holidays always feel a little easier when you already know the perfect gift, and Omaha Steaks makes it almost too simple. Whether you're treating yourself this season or sending something memorable to family and friends, Omaha Steaks delivers handcrafted perfection right to their door. And this week is the best time to jump in because their cyber sale is here and the deals are huge. The quality is exactly what you hope for. Incredibly tender steaks, rich flavor, and meals that make hosting or weeknight cooking easier. And the variety is underrated. Steaks, burgers, comfort meals, sides, desserts. It's one of those gifts that truly fits anyone. Save. Yeah, there we go. Save big on unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and add an extra 20% off select favorites during their cyber sale. And for an additional $35 off, use the promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code COLLEGE. Terms apply. See site for details. All right, Connor. The way that I hear the national media and even some Michigan media talking about the Ohio State offense, especially if Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate are playing. And again, if they play, everyone assumes they will be 100%. Is that Michigan's going to get shredded through the air. And maybe I've seen some who say, they're going to be able to run the football because we saw it against Rutgers. And I'm like, Rutgers has the literal worst rush defense in the country, but okay. Go off, King. How are you feeling, though? Because I think as much as people say, Matt Patricia versus Bryce Underwood is one thing. No one is talking about Julian Sayin versus Wink Martindale.
True. Yeah, that is. I mean, obviously, both sides of the ball are interesting. We'll see what happens, but I think it's going to have to be a fine line that Wink walks, right? Like the defense has been at its best when it's been simple schematically, relatively, right? I'm not saying don't run any simulated pressures but I do think they don't need to rush 5 or 6 too much. Definitely not 6, 5 here and there, and 4, whether you want to run some sims and, blitz someone, drop someone else, here and there, that's fine. But, it's one of those games where you're kind of going to want to see pretty early, are the edges going to be able to get to the quarterback when they're passing? And, Sayin really, he's been really good. There's, again, not a knock on him. Again, like you can't fault Ohio State for being good at pass protection and, having success. It's just a fact that they haven't been, the pocket has not collapsed much this year. I'm not saying it straight up will tomorrow, but have they faced edge rushers like Michigan? Now, the counterpoint to that is, well, they face good edge rushers every day in practice. So, if anyone's ready for it, I'm sure it's them. But I mean, I haven't seen a team in college football with a cleaner pocket like ever. So it'll be interesting to see if Michigan can, whether it's schematically or just straight, kind of like the Green Bay Packers, right? Both against Minnesota and Detroit. If you notice, like they're just rushing four, the four down linemen. They don't need to do anything else. So obviously if Michigan can even be half effective doing that, I think they should just keep doing that for the majority of the game. Running the ball. Outside of USC, were there any games that Michigan struggled to stop the run?
Not particularly. Let me double check just to.
I don't think so.
I think it was USC. I did see someone say something like, one of my colleagues said, yeah, like they've had multiple games where Oklahoma? I don't think that was.
So Oklahoma was effective running the ball with the quarterback run. They would go unbalanced, empty Q run, and that's where they're really effective. USC, Michigan was just running way too many exotic pressures, kind of like what I'm talking about with Ohio State. Ohio State does that every game. Michigan did it that USC game, obviously paid for it, but they haven't done the same thing since. I mean,
Purdue's the only other team that's had any kind of success, and that was without Devin Mockabee. So that was, as much as people put that everything on the offense, I mean, the Purdue offense did some things against the Michigan defense. I mean, still had their season low.
Yeah.
Until the Ohio State game.
Yeah. So, I don't see Ohio State being too effective on the ground, but it's funny. The narrative of Ohio State ran the ball too much last year, when in reality they threw the ball more than they did against anyone. When they played Michigan last year, it's, there is something to be said that the winner of the rushing battle since 2000 has won every single game.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and to that point, I just got back from Ann Arbor, where I was talking to Mark Ingram, and he said that it's essentially, I'm paraphrasing him here, but he basically said it's foolish, the idea that people have that Ohio State, play your game, just go out there and throw all over them and just whatever. He said that's just not how it works. It's not Michigan forcing you into their game as much as just they're built to stop the run. And even so, like it's too physical, where you have to be able to try to soften up the defense by running the football rather than just constantly throwing downfield.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, didn't Josh say it, like Ohio State's strategy should try to be to jump on them early, tempo early, and either create that lead, or the downside of it would be what happens if you go 3 and out a couple of times, and then, as Portnoy would say, I think you piss your pants. And I do feel like, I mean, it's such a cliche thing to say, but like, you're going to find out in the first couple of possessions how this game's going to go. It's so true though. Like if Ohio State is trying to go up tempo and trying to start throwing the ball left and right, and Michigan can, I mean, because here's the thing. Again, they haven't found themselves in situations where it's 3rd and long and they need a conversion. The game, I don't want to say the game's on the line, but like it's a tight game, it's a tie game, they're trailing. They haven't played from behind. So if they find themselves in a situation where their approach to the current offensive possession for them is going to be to throw the ball, a bunch, and they throw one incompletion and now it's 2nd and 10, or God forbid for them, they get sacked. I mean, now what, right? Mm-hmm. You're just going to double down and continue to throw. And, now it's 3rd and 15 or whatever the case is. So, it's not like, I don't know. If I were Ohio State, I'm not going to get into too many details on what I would do if I were them, but, you're right. I mean, it's not as simple as just, we need to throw the ball more. In Michigan's defense, the way they install it, the way the system works, and obviously you see the success in Seattle, LA, Baltimore. I mean, it's spreading throughout college football now. The way the system is built it's a perfect marriage between the coverage and the run fits. So there's a fundamental sound understanding of the run fits. And I think that pays off with huge dividends, and they consistently stop the run very well. But that doesn't mean it's like, oh, they decide to stop the run at the expense of stopping the pass. So they do things on the back end, specifically against Ohio State and a guy like Jeremiah Smith, to limit opportunities that Jeremiah Smith has in most games. And I do think the key, if you're curious about the injury update and the health of Smith and Carnell Tate, I'm more interested in Carnell Tate. Is he going to be playing at full strength? Because if he's not, then Jeremiah Smith, just like the last 3 years, has been the focus of the pass coverage approach that Michigan has taken. It hasn't changed too much. I'm sure they have wrinkles that they add, each year. I know they had a few wrinkles they added last year from the year before, and I'm sure there's more this year, but the basic approach is the same. And the only way to exploit Michigan's coverage game plan against Ohio State is going to be to have your number 2 and number 3 receiver have a very, very good day.
How confident or not confident are you in the defensive back's ability to cover? Let's just go with the hypothetical. They're full go. They're Smith and Tate, not limited. They're able to run full speed. They're able to do what they normally do.
Yeah. I think one thing to consider before I even give you my full answer on that is, because I understand the concern, right? There's plays here and there where you're like, man, what is he doing? Oh, we're going to get picked apart by Jeremiah Smith or whatever the case is. Like again, at least the last 2 weeks, Michigan's been playing a lot of one high defense, one post safety, and with cover 1 or cover 3, which puts corners on islands. I don't know exactly what the game plan is, but I would predict that that's not going to be the game plan against these guys. So people have to understand schematically, it's different. It's completely different techniques and scheme when you're in a too high call, especially if that's like your base call. Like, I'm not saying this is exactly what it's been, but in previous weeks, if you told Wink, you can make one play call the whole game, and you have to stick with that one call on every single play, it probably would have been cover 3. But this week, it's probably going to be cover 4 or cover 6. So it's completely different where they're going to be in a split safety defense and, focused on stopping the pass. But again, like I said, it doesn't mean you're now choosing to do that at the expense of stopping the run. It depends on how the offense aligns and what the play call is. But I think, again, to that question, you have to, a Michigan fan who's concerned has to understand, just like on offense, a game plan for one game is completely independent of a game plan for the next. And you're going to see that the most this week, where what they do schematically on defense in the coverage against Ohio State is going to look nothing like what they did against Maryland or a Northwestern or a Purdue. So that, to answer half of your question, halfway schematically, I'm not concerned, right? Now that the other half, just from a personnel standpoint, and obviously there are going to be times where there is a one-on-one, or we've seen Jeremiah Smith in the Rose Bowl go up in like triple, quadruple coverage and come down with the ball. So those opportunities are going to be there. I think any team in college football would be somewhat concerned about Ohio State's passing attack because it's very good. And that goes back to, can they get pressure on Sayin just with the 4 down linemen? It's just, football's it's such an intertwined, complex game that one thing affects the other, which affects the other. And it's not we're going to win or lose based on if so-and-so can cover so-and-so. Then it gets back to, well, how long does he have to cover him for? And that's assuming he's in man, right? So I feel good I wouldn't say great, but I'm not like overly concerned because again, it's not like Wink and the staff are pulling up the tape and telling themselves, oh, we can cover these guys man to man on every play. They're going to have schematic answers.
Well, I want to say I can't wait. I'm both excited, dreading it, right? Like, because I have a feeling of what's going to happen in this game, and it diverts a lot from what the national media thinks. I want to know what you think is going to happen in this game. We're going to get to that here in just a moment. But before we do, the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Connor. I know Ryan Day. I saw some national media say this is going to be the game where he hangs 100. I vehemently agree. I think Ryan Day is going to hang 100, and by hang 100, he has a sign, right, that he's going to just put up on the big house wall, like the emoji, the 100 emoji.
Yep.
I don't know. I felt like styles make fights. The styles haven't changed.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as people want to say, okay, they fixed the glitch, and by beating Tennessee and Oregon and whatever, those teams play a similar
Correct.
style.
Those teams are not Michigan, like we've said over and over again. No single game affects another single game. Points don't carry over. Styles don't carry over.
Timeouts do, though. Timeouts carry over from half to half, game to game.
Yes.
Sharon saving the one from Maryland first half for this game.
Yeah. So. We're starting with 22 timeouts?
Yeah, 22 timeouts. They're just going to call a timeout. Fox would love that, actually. They would. Nuts.
They would. In fact, there might be a rule change in the offseason. I think we just spoke that into existence.
How do you think this is going to play out? Because I still think styles make fights. I think that this is still more of a bad matchup for Ohio State than it is for Michigan.
Yeah, I don't do score predictions, so I'm not going to get into how.
No, you don't have to do score predictions.
But I think, going back to Michigan's offense, I'd be shocked if Ohio State fixes all their run fit problems. I'd genuinely be shocked. I'd be pretty impressed because there are quite a few, and I think there'll be, if they do happen to fix all their problems in the run fit, I think that just is only going to open up even more opportunity with boot and play action. So, again, I'm not going to get into like predictions, but
of course,
I'm with you on the style. It's Ohio State hasn't played anyone that's like this team on either side of the ball. And that's not to say Michigan's offense is a top 5 offense in the country or anything. It's just Michigan's strengths on offense, which they do have. They have won 9 games. Their strengths fit perfectly with Ohio State's weaknesses. And, you go on social media or whatever and you see, Matt Patricia, Bryce isn't going to be ready. Well, look.
This is why they brought in Jim Knowles for drives just like this.
And look, like, if Michigan is in a position where they need their freshman quarterback, as good as he is, to bail out the offense because it's constantly 3rd and long, then that means we're not running the ball effective anyway. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's just in the world in which Ohio State would win this game, that would just be the cherry on top. The cake of that analogy of Ohio State, if they were to win this game, 99% of the work is going to have to be stopping the run, being sound, gap sound, knowing who's the final run fitter, because Michigan's not a team that's going to just start throwing the ball all the time on first and second down. Not that they're going to not mix it in.
They did against USC, and that was kind of part of the problem early in the game. And by then they were down, and then they had to try to come back and all of that stuff.
So again, Ohio State's strengths and Michigan's weaknesses are also married, but it's like third down type stuff. So like third and long, obvious passing down. So I don't think anyone's arguing if Michigan, if this turns into a third down game, Michigan's going to win. No, if this is a 7-on-7 game, Ohio State's going to win. But guess what? There are pads, and this is not 7-on-7. So we'll see.
And I think people overlook other factors because Ohio State has been so good. Home field advantage, the fact that Michigan's won 4 in a row. Ryan Day's already changing things maybe it wasn't an overnight decision to take a plane rather than a bus, but getting outside of the things that they had normally done for this game, which is a very John Cooper thing. Jared, and I hope I'm not betraying a trust here. Jared Irons had told me he's good friends with Orlando Pace, and Orlando Pace had relayed to him, I think this is actually public as well, that John Cooper would have certain things all planned, and then the day of the game, while at the stadium, suddenly things change. Ryan Day seems to have a bit of that in him because things don't go as planned. And if they're not kicking, which is the way he said they'll have fun, do things change? As funny and click driven as Dave Portnoy is, he's not wrong in the point he's trying to make about Ohio State has not been tested, and you can feel confident going into a game. And sure, there is a world in which Ohio State gets up early. There is a world, right? But if this game, after the first couple drives, you're like, this is going to be a dogfight. You're going to already be able to feel the momentum just shift to Michigan right away. Just knowing that if this is going to be a close game, okay. Right. And as Jim Harbaugh used to always say, Michigan is going to have to play good, right? Like they can't have the turnovers. They got to win the turnover battle. I'm not saying they can't have any turnovers because every year I say that and then they do and they still win the game. But they're going to have to play well. They're going to have to finish drives. They're going to have to score touchdowns. I thought we'll finish out here. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I had been saying for the last several weeks since before the Purdue game, each game gave you a very specific test. Can you corral the Purdue offense? I know they're not highly ranked, but it is an explosive offense. And it was kind of intermittent, but they did. Offense was more putrid than the defense in that game. And then I said, going up against Northwestern, you need to be able to pass against their pass defense.
And see improvement with the pass protection and the whole deal we talked about. And you saw the improvement.
Yep. And then with Maryland, put it all together because they have a good enough offense to punish you defensively and a good enough defense to take the air out of the ball and not turn the ball over, because that's what they do. Maryland was a high turnover margin team. And outside of an errant throw that thankfully for Michigan got dropped, passed that test. So Michigan could very well lose this game. I'm not saying that it's a foregone conclusion on the other side. I just think that there are a lot of people that are overlooking what this is because they fall into the Ohio State hype machine.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, next time we'll talk to you, the game. And I mean you, the viewer, and you probably also you, Connor, but the next time we talk, the game will be over and we'll be reacting one way or the other. And hopefully it's not the way that Ryan Day wanted to celebrate. So, all right, that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for watching. Thank you for listening. We will talk to you again soon. Peace.